Hello, my name is Ed Frawley. My wife and I own Leerburg. We've been producing videos since 1982, but over the years, we've produced a lot of videos that ended up having old material because the sports and the concepts of what we're talking about have changed dramatically. In this video, this is a video I did titled Schutzhund the Dog Sport. And I produced it, I want to say, in the late 1980s, early 1990s, because a lot of people didn't know what Schutzhund was back then. Schutzhund's a dog sport that was designed to be a breeding tool to use to determine the temperament of a dog for breeding in Germany. It was designed by the SV, which is the German Shepherd Dog Club of West Germany. And back then, nobody knew what Schutzhund was. Probably today, nobody knows what Schutzhund is. The name has changed. Now it's IGP. The rules have changed since I did this video that I'm going to stream here for free. So look at this video as a historical video, not as a video for what's going on today. It's a totally different thing today. Some of it's worse. There's new organizations out there. There's the American Schutzhund, which is great. Schutzhund USA, I don't know what they call it. I don't know if they call it IGP USA. Schutzhund USA aligned itself with the SV and the German Shepherd Dog Club of West Germany. And a lot of the rules and a lot of the tests have gone away in the old style Schutzhund because of animal rights over there. And I'm not going to get into that here. You can take a look and see how we used to do this 35 years ago. And then if you look into IGP, you're going to see how it's done today. Pretty watered down, pretty bad. And I'll say this, I bred police service dogs, like I said, for 35 years, pretty darn good ones. Anyway, this is on the Schutzhund, the dog sport.
Hello, my name is Ed Frawley. I'll narrate this video on the sport of Schutzhund. What you're about to watch are parts of the closing ceremony for the Bundesliga in Germany. In this video, you will learn what Schutzhund is and what the Bundesliga is. Schutzhund is a German word that refers to the fastest growing dog sport in America. In 1970, a German immigrant named Gernot Riedel moved to Southern California. Gernot introduced Schutzhund to America. During the 1970s, Gernot traveled the country giving Schutzhund seminars. I attended one of those seminars in 1974 and immediately got hooked. That seminar set the stage for my life of studying dog training. It didn't take me long to schedule a vacation to Germany to the Bundesliga. I wanted to attend this national competition. The Bundesliga is to Germany what the World Series is to baseball. It's their national competition at the end of the year for the best of the best to compete. It takes place in a different town, a different location in Germany every October. I filmed these scenes from one of my earlier trips from the 1980s. When I arrived in Europe on my initial visit, I was immediately surprised by the number of people that are involved in this sport. Here in America, every town has its baseball and softball field. In Germany, every village has its own local dog training field or Schutzhund club. There are several 100,000 people in Europe involved in this sport. To put that in perspective, there are only about 5,000 members in the German Shepherd Dog Club of America. There are over 100,000 members in the German Shepherd Dog Club of Germany. I was literally amazed at the fact that there were 30 to 40,000 spectators at the Bundesliga. And yet this Bundesliga is a single breed show for German Shepherds. It doesn't take into effect Schutzhund competition for Rottweilers, giant Schnauzers, Boxers, Dobermans, Bouviers, or any of the other working breeds. So what is it about Schutzhund that makes it so popular? It would be nice if there was just one simple answer to this question, but there isn't. Many people are initially attracted to the sport because of the protection training that it offers for their dogs. Others come because they're looking for more of a challenge than AKC offers in the obedience ring. Many come because they've heard of the working ability and the temperament of the German bloodline dogs. These people have become disillusioned from poor temperament and lack of working ability that they find in the American Shepherds. And still others come because of the camaraderie of the sport. For whatever reason, many, like myself, get hooked. We soon find out that the protection work is only a small part of what Schutzhund is all about. We soon learn that training a dog for this sport develops a bond between the handler and his dog that surpasses anything we've ever been exposed to in dog training. Schutzhund is like a decathlon for dogs. It requires a great deal of training. Specifically, the dog must track a man, it must go through a series of obedience routines, and the dog must then perform a series of handler protection exercises. The word Schutzhund is a German word. It means protection dog. When I talk to new people about this sport, I'm always asked if training the dog for Schutzhund makes it dangerous to be around. The answer to that question is simple. Schutzhund requires a dog that has good temperament, and a dog with good temperament is not a danger to be around. The Schutzhund judge can excuse a dog at any point during a trial for exhibiting poor temperament. This training produces a dog with a great deal of self-confidence, yet a dog that can be around children. To me, that's good temperament. I have a 6-year-old son, and at any point in time, I have between 10 and 15 dogs in my kennel. My son and his friends can be around any of my dogs. Their biggest threat is being whacked in the head by a tail that's wagging or knocked down by a litter of puppies that's out looking for a game. In Schutzhund, more important than teaching the dog to bite, the training teaches the dog when it can't bite. Any police department in this country would love to have the type of control on their canine street police dogs that a well-trained Schutzhund dog has. To better understand what I'm talking about, let's take a moment to examine the origins of Schutzhund in Europe. Early German Shepherds came from herding stock. Even today, people like Carl Fuller, who you're watching here, continue to influence the breed. It's not uncommon for a sheep herding dog like this to run 50 miles in a day. If these dogs have serious conformation faults or are unwilling workers, they simply cannot stand up to the work that's required as a herding dog. For this reason, Max von Stephanitz, who is the founder of the German Shepherd breed of dogs, chose sheep herding dogs as his foundation stock for the breed. With the industrialization of Europe in the early 1900s, more and more dogs were being used as police service dogs or military working dogs. Von Stephanitz quickly realized the need to maintain good temperament along with working ability in his bloodlines. So he developed the Schutzhund exam to test temperament and to measure the working ability of an individual dog. He set a rule in the SV, or the German Shepherd Dog Club of Germany, that still stands today. That is, a litter of puppies cannot be registered unless both parents have Schutzhund titles. This one rule culls bad temperament and overly aggressive dogs with poor working ability from the gene pool. When asked why German dogs are so much better than American dogs, I always explain this breeding requirement. It's the reason why we still have such great working ability in the German bloodlines. The Schutzhund dog sport has developed to the point where today countries from all over the world are training many breeds of dogs to compete in Schutzhund. International rules have been established. They are administered by the Verein für Deutsche Hundesport, or VDH, in Germany. Here in America, we follow VDH rules. Today, there are between 300 and 400 Schutzhund trials each year in the United States, with close to 3,000 dog teams competing. There are 5,000 to 8,000 active people that participate in one form or another of this dog sport. Over the years, Schutzhund has evolved from a breeder's tool to a sportsman's competition. It's developed into a sport that allows dog owners to compete against one another for the recognition of the handler's ability to train his dog and the dog's ability to work. Let's take a few minutes here and explain exactly what's expected of a dog in a Schutzhund 1, a Schutzhund 2, and a Schutzhund 3. There are a number of titles a dog team can achieve in the sport of Schutzhund. The first is called a companion dog B, or just B for short. The dog must be 12 months of age before being shown for a B, and it must pass the companion dog exam before it can be shown for a Schutzhund 1 title. At 18 months of age, if the dog has passed the companion dog exam, it can be shown for a Schutzhund 1. If it passes a Schutzhund 1, it must wait 6 weeks before it can be shown for a Schutzhund 2. And then it must wait 6 additional weeks before it can compete in a Schutzhund 3 trial. After a dog has achieved its Schutzhund 1 title, the handler can show the dog for an FH, which is an advanced tracking title. The companion dog B is a basic obedience and traffic sureness exam. The B is required, as I said, for a Schutzhund 1. In it, the obedience exercises are first heeling on leash. The second exercise is heeling off leash. Then there is a sit in motion, then a down in motion with a recall, then a long down under distraction where the dog is placed in a down position. The handler moves 30 to 40 paces away and turns his back to the dog, while another dog team goes through heeling on leash, heeling off leash, sit in motion, and then the down in motion with recall. All the while, your dog is staying in a long down. In the traffic sureness portion of the B, the dog must demonstrate on-leash heeling near traffic. It must demonstrate that it can perform on-leash heeling through heavy pedestrian traffic. The dog must do a sit and a down under these conditions. Now, this work is done under extreme noise conditions, such as near a railroad or near a busy highway. In the third portion of the traffic section, the dog must demonstrate that it can behave when left alone during traffic conditions. Now, this test takes place in a quiet side street. The handler walks down the street and ties his dog to a fence post or a sign post or whatever the judge indicates. The dog is then left alone unattended for 2 minutes. During that time, another handler and his dog pass within 5 paces of the dog. The dog must lay quietly and calmly during this test. In the final test of the traffic portion, the dog is taken to a vacant field and let loose. The handler allows his dog to move away from him at will. When asked by the judge, the handler recalls his dog. Now, this is not an exercise where the dog is expected to come in and finish with a recall. In fact, if the handler feels like he wants to call the dog 2 or 3 times and use the dog's name, that's fine. The overall theme of the B is just to demonstrate that the dog has the very basic socialized obedience skills to get along in society. If a dog has a temperament problem, it's going to start to show up in the companion dog exam. A Schutzhund 1 is the most basic of Schutzhund titles. The dog must be 18 months old to get a Schutzhund 1. Each Schutzhund trial is composed of a tracking and an obedience exam in the morning and a protection exam in the afternoon. Now, each of these three phases is scored on a 100-point scale, with a perfect score being 300 points. To pass a Schutzhund exam, the dogs must obtain 70 out of 100 points in tracking and obedience and 80 out of 100 points in the protection phase. If the dog fails to get the minimum number of points in any one phase, it fails the entire exam. These scoring ranges are the same for Schutzhund 1, 2, or 3. Now, in a Schutzhund 1 track, a typical Schutzhund 1 track looks like this. The track is laid by the handler. It's between 350 and 400 paces long. It has two 90-degree turns. There are two articles, one in the middle of the second leg and one at the end of the track. The track is at least 20 minutes old when the dog is allowed to follow it. It's the handler's option to let the dog follow the track off-leash or to use a 10-meter line. In all of my years of Schutzhund, I've only seen one handler ever run a track off-leash. As a dog tracks and it comes to an article, it's to indicate the article by either standing, sitting, or lying down. Most people have their dogs indicate an article by lying down in the direction that the track is going with the article between his front feet. In this case, the dog should not touch the article. Schutzhund tracking is the most precise form of tracking in the world. The dog loses points for not keeping his nose to the ground or for quartering on the track. When the dog indicates an article, the handler comes up, picks the article up, and shows it to the judge. Before the dog tracks, its temperament is tested by the judge. Some judges will walk up and shake your hand while talking to you. Others will ask you to walk your dog through a group of people on a loose leash. If a dog shows faulty temperament, the judge can excuse him from the exam and not allow him to go through the tracking, obedience, or protection. It's important during the temperament test that the dog show neither shyness nor aggressiveness. In Schutzhund 1 obedience, the dog must perform the following exercises. It must heel on leash, it must heel off leash, it must do a sit out of motion, it must do a down out of motion with a recall, it must retrieve an article that belongs to the handler from the ground. It must then retrieve the article over a 1-meter brush jump. It must do a send away, in which the dog on command is to run 25 paces straight away from the handler and down when the judge orders the handler to down his dog. And finally, the dog must do a long down under distraction. In this case, that means the dog lays down while another dog goes through the entire obedience phase with the handler standing about 40 paces away with his back to the dog. In the Schutzhund 1 protection routine, the first thing the dog must do is search 2 blinds or 2 hiding places on the field. When he finds the helper in the second blind, he is to do a find and bark. The third exercise is an attack on the handler with 2 stick hits, which is followed by a call-off for the dog, where the dog must come off the bite when the handler calls him. The final exercise is a courage test. The rule book calls this the pursuit and hold. In this exercise, the helper escapes downfield. The dog is sent after the helper. When the dog is 20 to 30 paces away from the helper turns and attacks the dog in a very threatening manner. The dog must come in, bite, and hold. When told to do so by the judge, the handler commands his dog to out or come off the bite. The dog must come off the bite and remain attentive to the helper until the handler goes down and takes control of his dog. It's important for you to realize that these descriptions are as simplified as I can make them. I just described what takes place in a Schutzhund 1 in about 5 minutes of this video, when in fact I have a 2-hour video that explains in detail what's expected of a handler in a Schutzhund trial. So my point here is this, that there's a lot more that goes into a Schutzhund exam than what I'm covering in this tape. Our purpose for this tape is just to give the viewer a general understanding of the sport, its titles, and the differences between these titles. Most Schutzhund enthusiasts either get a Schutzhund 1 for breeding or a Schutzhund 3 so they can go on into advanced competition with their dogs. Schutzhund 2 is a stepping stone. A fair analogy is that a Schutzhund 1 is a college diploma, a Schutzhund 2 is a master's degree, and a Schutzhund 3 is a PhD in dog training. The Schutzhund 2 track is similar in shape to a Schutzhund 1, except that it's 600 paces long instead of 350 to 400 paces. It's laid by a stranger, not the handler, and it's 30 minutes old instead of 20 minutes old. There are still two 90-degree turns and an article in the middle of the second leg and one at the end of the track. While there are similarities in Schutzhund 2 obedience, there are some differences to the Schutzhund 1 routine. The on and off leash heeling is the same as in Schutzhund 1. The sit in motion, down in motion with recall are also the same. During Schutzhund 1 and Schutzhund 2, the dog is tested for gun sureness in off-leash portion of the heeling, and again in the long down exercise. In Schutzhund 2, the retrieve on the flat is done with a 1 kilogram dumbbell rather than a personal article. The dog must retrieve a 650-gram dumbbell over the 1 meter brush jump, again rather than a personal article. In Schutzhund 2, the dog must scale the 6-foot inclined wall and retrieve a personal article. The send away is 30 paces rather than 25 paces, and the long down is the same. In the Schutzhund 2 protection, we start to see more advanced exercises with additional control work. The dog must search 6 blinds, finding the helper in the 6th. After the dog does a hold and bark, the handler, rather than going into the blind to retrieve his dog, calls his dog back to him. After the handler searches the helper, he steps into the blind. The helper tries to escape. The dog must catch and bite the helper, thereby stopping him. The handler then calls his dog off the bite. After a short pause, the helper reattacks the dog and administers 2 stick hits on non-vital parts of the dog's body. Stick hits test the dog's nerve and character. They are an important part of Schutzhund. How a dog works under the stick tells a judge a lot about the fighting drive of the dog. After the reattack, the handler must call his dog off. This is followed by a 30-pace escort and another reattack on the handler. Here we see the escort will shortly have a reattack in which the dog will bite, stop the helper, and come off when the handler commands him to out. After the reattack, the handler immediately... The last exercise in the Schutzhund 2 protection work test is a courage test. That's the same as we saw in Schutzhund 1. The handler does not go over to pick his dog up. The handler does not move over to pick his dog up until the judge tells him to do so. And the courage test is similar to the Schutzhund 1 courage test. For the handler to get full points, he can only give the out command one time in Schutzhund. The rule allows for 3 verbal commands. But if more than one command is used, the handler begins to lose points. And if the dog does not come off the bite after 3 commands, the handler must physically take his dog off the sleeve, and he fails the entire Schutzhund exam at that point. He's excused from the field. This rule forces handlers to put a tremendous amount of control on their dogs. There is little room for sloppy training or dogs that have control problems in the sport of Schutzhund. Schutzhund 3 is the most advanced Schutzhund title you can get. Dogs that compete in major national events must have a Schutzhund 3. The typical Schutzhund 3 track looks like this. It's 800 paces long with 4 90-degree turns. It's 60 minutes old and it's laid by a stranger. There are 3 articles in Schutzhund 3. The handler can either free track his dog or use a 10-meter line. If he chooses to free track, he must stay at least 10 meters back behind his dog. When the dog leaves the starting point, or when it leaves one of the articles, the handler is to follow at the end of the line. He should not begin to follow until the entire line is played out behind the dog. Again, when the dog locates an article, he can either point it out by lying down, standing, or sitting. There is also an option to pick the article up or bring it back to the handler. The most common method trainers use is to point the article out by lying down on the track with the article between the front feet. The handler must tell the judge before the track starts if the dog will point out or pick up the article. If he chooses to point out the article, the dog may not touch the article once he finds it. When an article is found, the handler drops the leash and moves up to his dog. He picks the article up and shows it to the judge. Once he's sure that the judge has seen it, he puts it in his pocket, picks the line up, and commands the dog to begin tracking again. The dog should not begin to track until commanded to do so. When the dog reaches a corner, it should not proceed further than a body length past the turn. If the dog misses an article on the track, it loses 10 points in Schutzhund 3. In Schutzhund 1 and Schutzhund 2, it's a 7-point deduction. The dog can be penalized up to 8 points for tracking with a high nose, quartering too much, urinating or defecating on the track, or if the handler has to repeatedly restart his dog. What you're watching is a 96-point track from one of the Bundesligers. Schutzhund, unlike AKC, the judge gives the score and a critique immediately after the dog tracks, does obedience, or protection. In normal competitions, the judge will tell the handler what the dog did correctly and where he made his mistakes. He will also tell you where the handler made mistakes. It's not uncommon for handlers to make as many mistakes as their dogs make.
Eine leichte Suche nach links rüber ist auch hier geringfügig. Winkel ist in Ordnung, dann kreist er einmal leicht. Der Schenkel ist dann bis zum Ende in Ordnung. Winkel in Ordnung, Gegenstand in Ordnung. Beim dritten Winkel, da geht er leicht drüber hinaus.
Schutzhund 3 obedience is done off-leash. The handler must bring his dog onto the field off-leash and cannot put the leash back on until he leaves the field. The obedience routine that you're watching is a 100-point routine from a Bundesliga in Germany. The handler is Franz Guggenheim. He took first place in the 1991 Bundesliga with his dog Brix. I will identify the various exercises as Franz goes through his obedience work. What we're watching is the first exercise, which is off-leash heeling. Off-leash heeling is worth 10 points. During the heeling routine, the handler has to go from a fast pace, which we just saw, into a slow heel, which he just did, and then back to a normal heel. In a Schutzhund routine, there is a certain pattern that the handler follows. This pattern is explained by the judge before the trial. During the off-leash heeling, the handler must heel through a group of people, which you're seeing Franz doing now. This is just part of the off-leash heeling. He must do a sit in the group and then proceed on to the next exercise, which is a sit out of motion. In the sit out of motion, the handler walks 10 steps, sits his dog without pausing. The sit out of motion exercise is worth 5 points. The exercise that follows this is the down out of motion with recall. Every exercise in Schutzhund starts from what we call the basic position, which is with the dog sitting by your side. In this exercise, the handler walks 10 paces, runs 10 paces, and downs his dog. He then proceeds downfield, turns and waits until the judge tells him, and he calls his dog on a recall. This exercise is worth 10 points. The next exercise is the stand out of a walk. From the basic position, the handler walks 10 steps and tells his dog to stand. Without stopping, he proceeds away from his dog, goes downfield, turns and waits until the judge tells him to return to his dog. This exercise is worth 5 points. The next exercise is the stand out of the run. From the basic position, the handler runs at least 10 paces and tells his dog to stand. After going at least 30 paces, the handler stops, turns, and waits for the judge to tell him to command his dog to come. This exercise was worth 10 points. The next exercise is to retrieve a dumbbell weighing at least 2 kilograms on level ground. This is a 10-point exercise. The next exercise is to retrieve a dumbbell weighing at least 650 grams over a 1 meter high brush jump. This is a 15-point exercise. If the handler throws a dumbbell in this exercise and it happens to fall too close to the jump, the handler can ask the judge if he can rethrow the dumbbell, which just happened here. Franz will go and pick the dumbbell up, rethrow it, and then send his dog. This cannot be done without the permission of the judge. The next exercise is for the dog to climb over a 6-foot inclined wall and retrieve an article that belongs to the handler. In this case, the handler uses the smaller dumbbell. The inclined wall is worth 15 points. The next exercise is the send away, or the go ahead and down, which is worth 10 points. The final exercise in the Schutzhund 3 obedience routine is the long down under distraction. In this case, Franz takes his dog over to a pre-designated part of the field, tells the dog to lie down. He then moves at least 40 paces away from his dog and out of sight of the dog and waits while another dog handler team goes through the entire obedience routine on the field. Just before the send away of the other dog, Franz goes, picks his dog up, and brings him back. Now, the protection routine we're about to watch is the second place dog in the 1991 Bundesliga in Germany. This is a 98 out of 100 point routine. As you watch this dog work, I will explain the various exercises and their respective point totals. The first exercise is searching 6 blinds on the field, which we're watching the dog do now. This is a 5-point exercise. When he finds the helper in the 6th blind, the dog must do a hold and bark, which is a 10-point exercise. The next exercise is called the escape and the defense. It's worth 35 points. Here the handler searches the helper and moves into the blind. The helper then tries to escape. The dog must stop him. Once the helper stops, the handler calls his dog off. There's a re-attack. The dog is called off again, and the handler goes and picks up his dog. The next exercise is called the back transport. It's worth 5 points. After escorting the helper for some distance, the helper will turn and attack the handler. Again, the dog must bite and come off. The final exercise is called the attack, pursuit, and courage test. It's worth 45 points. In it, the dog is sent downfield after the helper. The dog must bite the helper, come off when told to do so. There is a re-attack with 2 stick hits. The dog must again come off, and then an escort back to the judge. As you can see, Schutzhund is a sport for the serious dog trainer. It's a sport that requires a dog with good temperament, a lot of drive, and the ability to work. If you have been to an AKC obedience event lately, you've seen the type of drive the American Shepherds have. After watching this video, you've seen the type of working drive the German dogs have. The sport of Schutzhund promotes working drive in our dogs. Schutzhund is the reason serious breeders are able to maintain these qualities in the bloodlines. If you have an interest in training for this dog sport, I will list a few of the training videos we offer at the end of this tape. If you wish to get more involved with the sport of Schutzhund, I recommend you contact Schutzhund USA in St. Louis, Missouri. I'll list their address and telephone number at the end of this video. The United Schutzhund Clubs of America, or Schutzhund USA, has divided the United States into regions. Each region has its own regional director. These regional directors can direct you to the Schutzhund Club nearest you. USA also has an excellent magazine that comes out once every other month. Your membership in Schutzhund USA helps promote the sport of Schutzhund in America. If you would like to receive a 32-page catalog of our training videos, drop us a line or call. I often get people calling and asking what videos I would recommend for a new Schutzhund club or a person that's just getting started in the sport. My answer is usually the same. Depending upon your budget, I would recommend the following tapes. The first would have to be handler training for a Schutzhund trial. While this tape is not a dog training tape, it's a handler training tape. It teaches the viewer what he or she needs to train their dog to do for a Schutzhund 1 trial. I can't tell you how many people have told me they wished they'd had this tape before they started to train their dog. This tape will show you what you should be doing and what you should be working towards in each phase of training. If you have a puppy, we recommend the video titled Bite Training for 8-Week-Old Puppies. This tape starts with 45 minutes of selection testing that shows you how to pick the right Schutzhund puppy from a litter. Then there is 1 hour of training that shows how to develop the pup's inherited drives and instincts. If you have a young adult, we recommend the first steps of bite training. This is a video on bite development. Every dog that's going to be trained for Schutzhund, police service work, personal protection work, or the ring sport must go through bite development. In bite development, the dog learns that it's okay to bite a man. He also learns when he can and cannot bite. We also have a video titled Training a Competition Tracking Dog, which is directed towards Schutzhund training. This video starts with training for an 8-week-old puppy and contains enough information to take the viewer through a Schutzhund 3 track. And finally, we have a series of obedience videos, starting with training the competition healing dog, through training the forced retrieve, training the jumps, etc. This series is directed towards competition Schutzhund training. These tapes contain the most comprehensive information available today on training obedience dogs. And finally, if you would like to see a national Schutzhund competition, we have the SV Bundesliga trials from the early 1980s on, and the German Rottweiler ADRK Meisterschaft competitions from 1990 on. The SV, again, is the German Shepherd Dog Club of West Germany, and the ADRK is the Rottweiler Club of Germany. These tapes were filmed in Germany and show all of the top dogs in these competitions. If you wish to contact Schutzhund USA, their address and phone number are